sure you're on talking terms, right? We can do a lot better than this. Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow, that's nice. That kind of nicely sets the platform for the rest of the day. So my name is Ajay Dubey. I'm the senior CAM from Forcepoint India, and on behalf of the entire Forcepoint team, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you. We appreciate your time and effort in making it to this lovely place, Taiwan. So, with that, let me welcome the RDs on the stage, the sales leaders. So to open this year's conference, sales leaders on the stage, please. an amazing performance, even more so by our regional sales leaders. By the time the stage is cleared, a couple of announcements. You have these badges, so please wear this all the times. And in case you need any help to get around the place, let us know. We'll be more than happy to help you. And just so that you know, we also have what is called as MTE, which stands for Meet the Experts. So these are some of your technical people who are meeting our experts from the headquarters. So that's happening in the room down the hallway. And before I welcome Alex, I think we're all set. Yeah. So with that, I would like to welcome Alex on stage.
Thank you. Good morning. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you very much to the Australian team. They lasted the longest last night, and they were quite early. Good job, man. And also the Indian team, because of them, right now it's 6:30 a.m. They barely woke up, alright? Usually when I go to India, my breakfast starts at 10 a.m. So thank you very much as well. Alright, for those who don't know me, I'm Alex Lim, I'm the channel leader for APAC. And you look at the war drum just now, the war cry, we are ready for the war, right? The sales management team did a very wonderful practice this morning. Not easy though, it looks easy, but you want to do it, not easy. Right? For me who's tone deaf, no way, that's why I'm not there. Alright, welcome to Taipei. And I'm not a very good person in talk of languages, so I just put a slide up to welcome all of you in your different language. This is our Forcepoint Partner Conference, and I know some of you took like 10 hours journey just to come here. So where we are today, we have folks from US, and we also have our Asia-Pac management team and channel teams here as part of Partner Conference. So this is a snapshot of the hosts that will be presenting in today's slots. So I just want to round out a bit of the number of participants. We're supposed to do that earlier on. There's about 15 countries partners from these locations. I was trying to do some maps initially on, but decided not good at maps, so I take that out and use the generic welcome. There's also, I'd like to welcome our media friends who's at the back from countries like Hong Kong, Taiwan, Australia and India. And 15 partners, 84 participants from 64 companies. So that's roughly the numbers around this here. So feel free to mingle. I believe all of you have a small booklet on the agenda. This is a guide. There'll be some tweak and changes, but the majority is the same. We will have the few speakers to present. Lunch will be at the same location where you have breakfast. If you have breakfast just now, all right, level 5. And then we will continue our session after lunch, and we'll be back. And we hear you last year. I know some of you have feedback that no more bus journey. We decided not to have bus journey. We'll have dinner here. Our gala dinner will start from here today, and right at this ballroom. And for tomorrow, we know it's going to be a late night for tonight, so we'll start tomorrow at 9, and then we'll finish off by 12:30. All right. I do know some of you have flight to catch about 2 or 3 p.m. So we'll try to finish in time. We also have analysts from Frost & Sullivan. We're going to launch a data guard product as well, introduction of data guard. So this is roughly the agenda for day 2. All right. Why are we here today? We're here to also make sure that we learn from each other. All right. In fact, we started having some one-to-one meetings yesterday. So basically, APAC, whether you're from India, Bangladesh, Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Korea, Thailand, Vietnam, right, Singapore, Malaysia. We may be different countries, but we act and our business is almost the same. All right. So build relationships. You never know when you need your counterpart to do joint sales together. All right. We are also spending some time to understand the human points system and source strategy. Some of our channel managers and our sales have spoken to you after our SKO about human point. What is it about? So this is where we're going to share with you. Let's grow the business together. You heard the war drum just now. Let's make it happen, right? And of course, we'll share some very exciting roadmap to the audience. So, for some of you who are new to Forcepoint, most of you will have known that Forcepoint is actually made out of 3 companies that we joined together in the 2016. Back then, we have a view. Cybersecurity is broken. Right? Personally, I've been cybersecurity for 18 years. We have seen the changes of cybersecurity. It's no longer as effective as it used to be. So 2016, we came down. We need the change of paradigm. What you are seeing today is not a 3 months work or a 6 month work. It's a combined effort of since 2016. Of course, some of you are very excited. We actually made 2 acquisitions last year: Skyfence, a Caspi Solutions, and Red Hour, a UABA Solutions. All right. So this make out of where we are in Forcepoint, and how our agenda will also cover some of this. And this is just a snapshot of the various analysts who rated us last year. This is one of the most updated. And we are not just leader of one product, and the rest is just trying to fill the gap. We are recognized as leader in the various fields in our solutions. What is from CompTIA IT Outlook for this year? What they are saying is that there's no doubt that companies are really taking security more seriously. Some of you who have seen me present before, I mentioned about digital transformations. Digital transformation is changing your customers, their business, whether they are banks, whether they are manufacturing, any kind of industry. Digital transformation is changing the way their business works. All right, and they do need to take security more seriously. It used to be security is taken only by enterprise, SMB, they don't care. Today, they are also looking into how do I secure my business, even for SMB, right? But they now also must understand that the modern security demands a different approach. And it's not just buying more the same. So where is cybersecurity heading? And it was interesting because I met CIO as well, CISO, and talked to them. A lot of time they say, no, Alex, I have 20 products easily. All right? IT budget has gone down a bit. I'm managing with lesser people. Sometimes I outsource as well. But basically, it's not easy, right? If they really talk to you the truth, it's not easy. It's been like running on a very thin line. Now, for me and for all of you in cybersecurity, it's very easy to understand that. But how easy is it to tell a non-cybersecurity person? I could not. It was quite a tough discussion until one day, one of my trips, I took a taxi, and I saw this. Interesting, right? Taxi is no longer just driving from point A to point B. Why? Because of Grab, Uber, Google Maps, and the changing landscape of your cities and infrastructures. You see a lot of devices that a driver will need to in order to navigate. Even my own car, I have one for Google camera, for the Google Map, for the maps actually, Garmin I use. And because my wife will never know how to drive from certain point to certain point, I have to build that for her. Right? No, blame my wife, alright, not me. And just add on as you go. And that's what cybersecurity is about for the past 20 years, right? Cybersecurity has always been a one-trick pony. You have something, you have a problem, you add one to it. Or you need now Grab to add up the dashboard. So that's what's happened to cybersecurity. Forcepoint Outlook is different. Alright, for the past 2 years, we looked into the whole thing, we decided that it must be a new paradigm change. And we are this. Nice build, it's consolidated, the maps is integrated, the music functions is integrated, every stuff is inside this nice dashboard, one Outlook view. If your tire does not have enough pressure, it will highlight to you, multiple sensors. It can be auto-driven as well. And that's what cybersecurity is heading into. Predictive automations. No more manual drive. If you see the car just now, it was still a 4-gear drive. Remember, for those who still remember how to drive a car in a 4-gear stick or 5-gear stick, never easy. Alright? Personally, I'm not a good driver, and my car always stall because I'm not a good driver. Alright? Today, if I ask my cousin who's 18 years old to drive a gear stick drive, no way. No way he can get out of the driveway. But that was how cybersecurity is today. The traditional way of approach is very manual driven, very reactive to a certain extent, because something happened, you react to it. But where Forcepoint is looking at is really like a car of modern way, autonomous to a certain extent, predictive, alright, single dashboard. Now I'm not going to go down too much, I know I'm running out of a bit of time, alright, but I want you to start thinking about this paradigm shift. Alright, and I hope this concept gives you that easy understanding. And with that, I thank you. And I would like to invite Ajay back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Alex did a welcome in 15 different languages, so maybe it's time to tell him thank you in his own language. So, Sheshe Alex. Okay, so one interesting thought, right, about what Alex was taking from what Alex was saying. Significant change that has happened in cybersecurity in the last couple of years is that cybersecurity and data theft is no longer something that needs to be spoken about or taught about, because it is happening in everyday news. It has practically reached our prime time news channels. It has reached the front page of newspapers. So cybersecurity, cybercrime, data theft is now it's a different paradigm altogether. And we believe at Forcepoint that we are at a very important inflection point in this whole industry. So to walk you through this inflection point and to give you the Forcepoint perspective, I now welcome Brandon on stage.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me? No? All right. Maybe it's on now. There we go. Now we've arrived. Thank you all for coming. Sorry for the early morning. So my name is Brandon Swafford, and I'm the CTO for data protection and user in data protection here at Forcepoint. And I'm going to speak to you a bit today about how we believe that we're going to transform cybersecurity and what the world starts to look like. And frankly, it's a very interesting time in the world, and things continue to heat up. And if you read the news, whether it's real or fake, however you choose, the world's a complicated place. But throughout time, the United States and Russia, those aren't new things. The combinations and problems of the world aren't necessarily net new, but it's a constant evolution. And frankly, as technologies become more interesting and more complicated, the threat landscape and our ability to defend against that has become more complicated. I didn't used to doubt the news that I read. I'd read it in the newspaper, I'd read it online, and I didn't think twice about it. But I don't think that's the way the world works anymore. We have to think about the world and security just a little bit differently. And because of that, there's a perfect storm that's forming, and that is cybersecurity in the past was thought of as very much a net cost company. It was something they had to do, they had to check the box. But frankly, today it's an enabler to the company to operate. It's a world where cybersecurity and technology are starting to become one. When you move information from a computer you can see and you can touch to one that you'll never see and you'll never touch to one that's owned by somebody else, creates a completely different scenario by which a company has to operate and think about technology. So now is a very interesting time for us to think about how do we evolve to meet that challenge. This digital transformation affects everybody, but it affects everybody a little bit differently, and I think the way to think about that is that data is really the new oil of the world. It's what the world runs on. Your information is valuable, and I think we've learned that really recently with things like Facebook and Equifax, at least as far as the United States is concerned with Equifax and Facebook affects the world. Your information was valuable. It affected elections. It costs money. It costs you money. And so in the past, that was not a thing we thought about. It was your name, your address, your interests. But now That's currency. And so companies have to protect it differently. And we should start to think about how do we protect that transformation, where we go from technology where it supports people doing their job to when you think about AI and mobile devices and sort of big data, as much as I may hate that word these days. That's what's really producing the revenue. That's what's changing the world. So to that end, the IT industry before was something that you bought, you paid for. You had people that went and purchased your SAN, purchased your computers, but now that's reaching a point where the complexity of deploying an enterprise application or deploying an enterprise capability to the whole world is incredibly complicated. Because now it's not just about buying computers and hiring people to run them. Now it's about which cloud provider do you use? How do you get the best pricing? How do you secure your application and leverage multiple clouds? How do we make sure our stuff is up all the time? How do you provide uptime when you don't really control the resources? And on top of that, when you start to transit multiple locations, now we have multiple compliance, lots of regulatory issues to deal with. And the IT industry is really responsible for meeting those challenges. So now is a really interesting time to deal with it because those changes, those massive shifts in how a company operates, because a few years ago, my phone was not a business asset. That was my phone. The company didn't own it. There wasn't information on that phone. But that's very different now. That iPhone sitting on the table over there is to some extent a Forcepoint asset now, even though it's my name on the bill. So cybersecurity is very different than it used to be. So how do I work to control and manage that security, even though I don't really own that device? It's my name, but Forcepoint doesn't pay for it. Now, if you think about this painting, he's having a bad day. But did anybody go to RSA recently? Yeah, some of you have been there. If you walk through the floor, it's unbelievable. Think of any particular capability in security, and there's going to be 10 people to do it. And those 10 people are going to disagree about what the best approach might be. So cybersecurity is at a really critical point right now because there are so many different problems and so many different ways to approach those issues that if I were a CISO at a company, I'd be making that face all the time. I'm not sure where I would start or how I'd handle that situation because I'm now responsible for both the infrastructure that I have, that I can go and see and touch, the laptop I can touch, the server in the server room, but I'm not responsible and I can't touch the things at Amazon EC2. I can't touch Office 365. I can't go to Box and ask them where my data is. And I certainly can't go and grab my employee's cell phone and wonder what he did with it. So we have a lot of really interesting problems to solve. And we have to think about that world just a bit differently. And I mentioned an iPhone a minute ago, but who here has a BlackBerry? And tell the truth. Really? No one? I'm not sure I trust you. So BlackBerry owned the industry for years. In fact, it became almost like a Kleenex or like duct tape or like Scotch tape, or it was a verb unto itself. A BlackBerry wasn't just a phone; it was an appliance. It was a thing that everybody had. Now, nobody has one, and everybody's got an iPhone. But why? How did that happen? Why did that win? Apple's a closed ecosystem, right? So was BlackBerry. So why are they different? Well, what changed is the ability for everyone to play the game. What Apple did was they opened up the aperture to everyone to be involved. And now everyone's involved in those processes. We went from having to create an entire stack of technologies to creating one little app, and now that app made you money. Now that app served the purpose. You didn't have to build the phone, you just had to make the software. And now the same thing is true as we move to cloud apps and service-based models, where your job is to provide this little piece of the puzzle while somebody else provides the rest. But if we move a bit past that, the world changed on us in a lot of ways, and the new math we have to be concerned with is where is retail? Where are the stores going? And they're all getting eaten up by Amazon. Amazon was a bookseller 10 years ago. Where are the taxes and the meters? And now it's Uber. My phone gets me a ride, not my hand. So this is kind of a fundamental reality we have to sit and really think about what to do about it. And because of those changes, because of the idea that now I've got a little app that does the job versus the phone, so how do I own that security? We have to think about security quite a bit differently. And to that end, there's a change we have to do. And I've said it several times that we can't see and touch a lot of this technology. We can't sit and think about network security and data security the same way. So we have to think about it from a perspective of what is the one thing we can maybe see and touch? What's the one thing that we can interact with? And where does this whole thing start? And it starts with people. It starts with me, you, anybody. And that is, I'm the one that uses that phone. I'm the one that uploads data to Box. I'm the one that logs into Office 365. So what Forcepoint is doing and what we're trying to change the industry to focus on is to focus on the people that actually access the information, because frankly, it's the one thing we can think about controlling. As I said before, where data is really the lifeblood of the world, then it will continue to get more important. If we can start to control how that data is created, how it's accessed, how it's controlled, then we start to worry less about the underlying pieces. It's not necessarily my problem, my job anymore to think about how those processing systems necessarily operate or how they communicate. If I can control the information, if I can control the data, and I understand where it goes and how it's being used, I can start to push that problem to a controllable framework. I can start to think about how I manage it even though I don't own all that infrastructure. And so this is our moment. Like this is our time, because we, Forcepoint and our partners, are one of the few organizations in the world that is agile enough, is competitive enough, and frankly has the vision to push these projects forward, because we have a unique opportunity having both lots of visibility. We have tools that can see lots of things happening on your network and happening on your endpoints. We have controls that are able to take that information and provide that security both, again, at the endpoint, in the cloud, and on your endpoint, and we're now putting intelligence and analytics behind that. So Forcepoint is in a really unique position because we have a portfolio of products that's able to deliver on that vision. And frankly, you as our partners are able to take full advantage, because if I can control the information as it's being created, and I can control it where it goes, and I have an understanding of how it's being handled, we start to move beyond those issues of how do I see it and what do I do with it. So as a purpose-built company, we have that opportunity to push those goals forward. And I think it's being reflected in the performance. We had 87 $1 million deals last year. And that's a lot of large deals for a company our size. When you think about the overall revenue numbers, this is easily, it's almost 20% of the overall revenue was just large deals. And that doesn't happen by accident. That happens by delivering a portfolio of products that play well together, that tell the customer that it's not just a point product anymore. And the point product sales are to some extent over. It's not really about, I need best of breed and everything, because best of breed is a lot harder to determine. And I believe that Forcepoint's products, as they've been designed, are all best of breed. So if you invest in the ecosystem as a customer, you're getting both the controls, the analytics, and the intelligence that reduces your total cost of ownership. It increases your ROI, and ultimately reduces the complexity of just making all this work. And I think that's why you're seeing these deals. So what am I going to do for you? Now, I'm not the CEO. This is usually a speech that Matt is able to give to you and tell you what he can promise you. So I'll say what we collectively, Forcepoint, will promise you. And that is, we're going to continue to invest. The one benefit that we have is that I don't believe that we should necessarily have to build ourselves all the things. We have the opportunity to leverage the investment capability that Forcepoint has to help us understand and acquire companies that make sense. Things like CASB and UABA are evidence that we're able to go and find the best of breed, bring it in-house, and integrate it into our product suite. So we'll continue to invest in the technology. But we're also going to continue to invest in every one of you, because it's our partners that provide us that capability, because we can't be everywhere. Nor do we think that we can provide that to every culture in every country in the world. Because I've had the unique opportunity to travel to, I think it's 18 countries since last year. And I can tell you that there is uniqueness in every one of them. There are things that can be dealt with and conquered by people that are in the region that understand the customers far better than any of us could back in the United States. So you're a critical component, and we'll continue to invest in training and understanding and helping us bring us all together as one team. And that's what I need for you. So I would have one ask, and I think I speak for Matt when I say this, is that I need you to help bring us together as one team. I need your feedback. I need your understanding. I need to understand what your customers are telling you that's unique and interesting that I have to deal with and fix the products and manipulate them, or help provide better sales plays to help support the products in your region, because every part of this world is unique, and I think you can help bring that uniqueness to us, and we can help address those customer challenges and needs more effectively. So our only ask is that we act and we come together as one team, and we can operate like that. So I really appreciate your time today, and I think you're going to find the rest of the day very exciting. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brandon. 81 $1 million deals. That was awesome. So now I would like to welcome Mike Plant, our Forcepoint Vice President for Revenue Marketing. Mike will dive a little deeper into how Forcepoint is transforming cybersecurity by taking a human-centric approach. Mike, over to you.
Thanks, Ajay. Good morning, everyone. So as Brandon summarized, the challenge we face together in serving our customers is that the risk they face to their business is more severe, because more of our business, more of our government, more of our critical infrastructure is now digital and going through digital transformation. But it seems like the traditional security solutions are not delivering adequate protection. Let me ask you a question. How many of you today feel safer online than you did 5 years ago? 2 people, 3 people. As an industry, worldwide, we spend about $10 billion US every 10 years to improve protection. And yet, in a room of 120 people, 3 people felt more safe than they did 5 years ago. That's how our customers and our governments, our utility companies feel. So that's why Brandon was explaining we need a new approach to cyber. We labeled our approach, how we're going to tackle this problem in a new way, we call it the human point strategy. So I'm going to explain to you why we believe this approach, which is completely different than traditional security, will actually improve the situation for our joint customers, for our governments, and for our utility companies and banks, etc. When I bought my first computer, I will now maybe indicate how old I am. When I bought my first computer, the only thing I had to worry about was connecting the printer. There was no network, there was no internet, and it was very simple. That is not the world of our customers, our CISO and CIO customers. This is their world, right? They have their company network, but they have partners and customers who are trying to work and do business with them. Their employees are using services in the cloud like Box or Office 365 or Salesforce. As Brandon was explaining, this is the modern reality that a CISO has to try to protect. But the problem is the approach to security is the same approach as an industry that we had 40 years ago when I bought my first computer. And so you can see where security technology and the approach to security is not keeping up. When you're having discussions with customers, are you hearing some of these questions? Maybe questions like, my company is going through digital transformation, but I'm not sure if my current security will protect us when we're using Salesforce or when we're using Box or when I allow my employees to bring their own devices to work. Or maybe the CIO will say, how do I balance between completely protecting everything but allowing my employees to be productive? You guys understand, we could take all of a company's data, We could put it on a hard drive. We could put it in a safe. We could lock the safe. And we could throw it to the bottom of the ocean. The data would be very safe, but nobody could get their work done. At the other end of the extreme, if you don't provide sufficient protection, everybody can get their work done, but you have data, security breaches and data leakage and other problems that are not good for companies. So if you're one of our customers, you're asking yourself, how do I balance that? Or maybe you're hearing our customers ask you questions about, I have data that's now in Box, or Dropbox, or Salesforce, or Office 365. How do I protect that data? It's not in my data center. How do I do that? These are real questions that our customers around the world are asking us. The human point strategy is an answer to those questions. If you're a CIO today, how do you try to solve the problem? Well, you can't put all your data in a safe and throw it at the bottom of the ocean. We know that won't work. So Brandon mentioned that maybe sometimes companies will have 20 different security point products. Our research indicates that the average is actually more like 50 to 70 different security products to try to protect all of that critical data and all of the activity that's happening in the organization. The other thing that we see our customers doing today is they are relying on the same approach that we've used for 3 decades. This idea of, I'm going to try to identify all of the bad software and the bad threats and keep them out. How many of you have heard of the name Peter Norton? You guys know who Peter Norton is? Or John McAfee? These two guys pioneered how we think about security today, for the most part, in the early 1990s. And the approach was, try to identify if something is bad, and if it's bad, don't let it in. That could be antivirus, that could be a firewall. That was the traditional approach for security. And because the industry has not given a CISO a better answer, that's the same answer they're relying on today. And then the third thing that we see customers doing is they say, my data is in Salesforce, I will trust Salesforce to protect it. My data is in Amazon Web Services, I will trust Amazon to protect it. Have you guys ever heard customers say that? Do you guys think that is a good idea? I know that I see in the news every week somebody's data that's hosted in one of these cloud services has been stolen or lost or otherwise compromised. So the industry today has not been giving our customers a better choice. Forcepoint is giving now our customers a different and better choice. And we need your help to explain and help us enlighten customers on what this better choice is. I mentioned that the traditional approach to cyber is 30, 35 years old. And here's how it breaks down. You try to identify, is this a good piece of software? Is this a good internet request? Do I know this is good, or do I know this is bad? When it was just my personal computer, and I was just trying to connect to my printer, and maybe I would install software using a floppy disk. Do you guys remember floppy disks? This approach was probably okay, but this approach does not work so well when it's not just my employees. It's not just my servers. It's not just data that I can see in my data center. When it's cloud services and employee devices and partners trying to access my network. And I want partners, right? we have a partner portal. You have access to a piece of our infrastructure as our business partners. Many, many companies do that. When you have all of these changes for digital transformation, what happens is it creates very many situations where using today's technology, you cannot tell if it's good or bad. If you cannot tell if it's good or bad, what should the security software do? It either says, if I don't know what it is, it's bad, or it says, if I don't know what it is, it's good. Are either of those two options safe? Probably not. As Brandon explained, what we have is, we don't have context about the stuff in the middle. Bring your own devices, usage of cloud apps, non-employees that I want to interact with my data. The human point strategy is about understanding and providing context to the stuff in the middle, the stuff that traditionally we could not tell if it was good or bad. By taking a look at what the people are that are interacting with the data, and if that interaction is normal or unusual, we can start to give context to the stuff in the middle and help determine, is it good? Is it probably good? Is it bad? Is it probably bad? And we can start to turn that gray into an ability to make decisions. How do we do that? Well, why do we do that first, I guess, is the question. We talked about the fact that companies do not own or operate a lot of their IT infrastructure. If you don't operate the data center that runs Salesforce, then you have limited control over the access and the devices that are getting to the company's data. And it is impossible remotely to block all of the attack vectors. You're basically trusting Salesforce or Microsoft or these other companies to take care of that. It's important to understand that this approach was designed when the primary way that businesses would be attacked was from bad software. Today, the principal way that bad things happen is not from bad software or from malware. It is actually from people or things pretending to be an employee or pretending to be a partner, right? The Equifax breach that Brandon talked about that happened in North America, or that we learned about in North America last summer, was about an employee's ID credentials were stolen by a bad person. And the bad person used those credentials to get on the network and to go find data that they could steal. It's not about viruses. I mean, there are still viruses, don't get me wrong, and we still have to block and protect against that. But the principal way that companies are being compromised is actually from stolen identities and stolen credentials. The other thing that we see is that the bad guys, the hackers, they are converting employees, partners, good people into insider threats. They compromise the employees by stealing their credentials or by tricking them into doing things that are unsafe. And it's traditional cyber, right? This approach, it's an employee. I want them to do whatever they want to do, right? So your approach is to say everything an employee does is good, but if the employee has been compromised, you're allowing employees, or what appear to be employees, to do good things. And finally, as our technology becomes more advanced, it's easy for good employees, good partners, good customers to make mistakes. How many of you have worked with customers where an employee clicked on an attachment in an email that was really trying to steal their passwords? That happens every day, right? all of you guys have had to do that and talk to customers about that. Employees not doing smart things is one of the leading causes of how data leaks out of a company. So the human-centric approach, the human point strategy, is about understanding when people interact with data, when people's identities interact with data, regardless of where the data is stored. Even if the customer's data is in Salesforce, or if the customer's data is in the data center, or the customer's data is in AWS, regardless of where the data is stored, and regardless of the people being your employees, your customers, your partners, understanding how and when those interactions take place, that flow and rhythm, that's how the human point system works. The basic idea is that, and I will use the Equifax example. I know it was a breach in North America, but I'm more familiar with it. In the Equifax example, an employee's credentials, someone that looked like an employee, was accessing data that employee would never normally access. Those ID credentials did not access that data. It would have been relatively straightforward for Forcepoint software to see that what appears to be this employee has never touched that data before. Something different, something odd, maybe something not good is happening. That's kind of how the human point system works. We have a portfolio of products. Do you remember the race car from Brandon's slide? How every component of the race car, the tires, the engine, the body, the brakes, were all specifically designed to build this human point system. These are the components of the car. And as Brandon mentioned, each of those components is best in class. So for example, our DLP has been in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for 9 years in a row. Our CASB can detect and protect in more cloud environments than any other CASB in the world. Our firewalls are the most secure firewalls on earth. So they're best-in-class products, and customers buy, and you help us with customers who want to buy one of those products at a time today. What happens is when you start to connect the products together, over time, we can begin to deliver this human point system. You can start anywhere in our portfolio. Say that you are a DLP customer in India, or maybe you have a web proxy or web security or web filtering customer in Australia. That can be a starting point, and then you can add different components to enable the human point strategy. Here's a very simple way to understand the human point strategy. It is a system of sensors that understand when people are touching data. And those sensors are in each of these products. DLP, web security, email security, the firewall, they all create information, data about when people are touching your customer's data. So there's a system of sensors. Those sensors feed data to analytics. And the analytics says, this looks normal, or this looks not normal, or we need more data, this looks like it might be okay. And it helps us evaluate the risk. Then, there's sensors to collect data about people and data interactions. The sensors feed that to analytics. Analytics determines the risk situation, a risk score. The risk score can then be fed to policies that say, do this. If the risk is low, it's okay. If the risk is medium, take some precautions. If the risk is high, block it. So that's kind of how so then finally the human point system has a set of enforcement capabilities. The ability to, say, turn on encryption, or block traffic, or block access. That's kind of how the human point system works. So our approach is different than the traditional approach based on threats. And is the threat good or is the threat bad? We give customers a 360-degree view of how their people are interacting with their data. Again, regardless of where the data is, and regardless of if people means customers, employees, partners, etc. Through analytics, we provide a deep understanding. We call it a risk score, but a deep understanding of, is this normal behavior or is this unusual behavior? And then finally, we provide the ability for the system to take action, to turn on encryption or to block or whatever the policy says that should be done. The exciting partner opportunity around the human point system are all of the rich services that you can help us deliver with our customers. Which sensors do I need? Which data needs to be protected? How should my policies react to different threat levels or risk scores? This is a tremendous opportunity for our partners to become strategic business advisors with our customers about how to deploy the human point system in a brand new way that provides better protection, especially of the company's most important assets, data. So Brandon said, data is the new oil. That is absolutely true. And the human point strategy is about delivering better protection of the data. So another way to think about it, we're trying to provide different ways to explain how the human point strategy is different than traditional cybersecurity. In the traditional cybersecurity approach, the industry was focused on threats. Is this bad software? Is this good software? That ended up meaning that everybody that was touching your data, all of your employees, all of your partners, all of our customers, they had basically one approach. The same rules applied to everybody in the exact same way in every situation. Because it was not trying to understand the situation, it was trying to just understand, is this good software or is this bad software? The human point strategy provides risk adaptive protection. What does that mean? That means that by using the data we collect from the sensors and then the analytics to understand if the situation is normal, very unusual, or something in the middle, we can provide security that changes. And it changes for each individual. So for example, for me to access data in our marketing automation software in Marketo is pretty normal. If one of our partners was accessing data in Forcepoint's Marketo, that's pretty unusual. So that's an example of how the human point strategy delivers one-to-one security. And it's adaptive not only to each person on your network, employees, partners, or customers, but it is also adaptive to the situation. So something that I do today may be normal, but if I do that same thing at 2 a.m., maybe it's not normal. And the analytics software can help us understand that. This is how we believe that we will deliver for our customers a complete, radical transformation of security. We go from generic, one-to-many, based on threats, to risk adaptive. It understands the situation, it understands each user's normal behavior, and it creates a security that is tailored to each person and each situation. The analysts at Gartner have a new framework they call CARTA, C-A-R-T-A. And CARTA is talking about the layers and approaches to security that make companies more safe, better protection. The framework basically says that if you have only a threat-centric approach, you are this secure. If you add data-centric security, traditional DLP, for example, you are more secure. If you add maybe CASB so that you can understand data in the cloud, you are even more secure. And in the CARTA framework, they believe that being risk adaptive, being able in real time to understand the interaction between people and data and changing your security response in real time to the situation and to the users is the most secure. And so this is a maturity curve that we share with our partners so that you can have a conversation with our customers saying, customer, where are you on this curve? Are you still mostly threat-centric? Are you starting to embrace data-centric? Are you ready to become fully risk-adaptive? So we believe this framework is very simple, but it provides a way for us together to have conversations with our customers around where do you want to be on the vertical security effectiveness scale? How important is this to your business? How vital is your data? So as Brandon mentioned, our ask of all of you today is to join us in bringing the Human Point strategy to our customers in Asia Pacific. We believe there will be some really important benefits. This approach delivers better protection. It is not the same approach that we've used for 30 years. It understands cloud services. It understands many people interact with your data, not just your employees. It understands that people interact with your data when they're traveling and they're in a conference in a hotel, or they're partners that are not part of your employees, but they're still part of your ecosystem. So it delivers better protection. But also, I think important for you as our partners, it delivers differentiation. It will make you different, more important, and more strategic to our customers, because you're not going to come in and say, you have 50 products, here's 51 and 52. You will not be like other vendors and partners and come in and say, more threat-centric, different threat-centric. It's a completely different approach. It allows you to be unique and differentiated and more strategic than the other partners you compete with. It's really important that you understand we hand-selected you to come to this conference. We did not invite all of our partners in Asia-Pac. We invited you because we believe that you are the partners that will help us change the security industry in the Asia-Pacific region. And we believe that in the process, our customers will be more secure and we will grow our business together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I think we're doing pretty good with the time, so it's time to go for a quick break now. We can take a half-an-hour break and come back at 10:15. And in the next session, before lunch, we have Q&A lined up for you. So just in case you have some questions, you might want to write it down in a piece of paper, hand it over to us, or you can feel free to ask questions during the Q&A session. So see you at the other side of the break at 10:15. Thank you.